Welcome, everybody. I'm Stephen Motico, the publisher of Nightboat Books. Thank you for joining us at this reading to celebrate 5 of our fall titles. Andrea Abikarama's Villainy, Paulo Javier's OBB, Oscar Oswald's Irredenta, Olivia Tapiero. It's translated by Kit Schluter's Phototaxis, and Joey Algozin's A Feeling Called Heaven. I want to thank Andrea, Paulo, Oscar, Olivia, Kit, and Joy for being here this evening. I want to thank the Nightboat staff who worked so hard to bring these beautiful books into the world and help to organize tonight's event. Lena Bergamini, Lindsay Bolt, Rissa Hochberger, Gia Gonzalez, and Kaylin Nardone. Before we begin, I'd like to share a few reminders. We are recording tonight's event for archival and social media purposes. You are welcome to keep your camera on or off, but we'd like to remind you that there is a possibility that your tile will appear in the recording if you decide to leave your camera on. All audience members will be on mute, but if you have any questions or run into difficulties, please feel free to reach out to Kaylin or Lena, who will have Nightboat in their name. If you hear something in the reading that you resonates and there's a line that you love, we hope you'll show your support by sharing in the chat. I hope you consider supporting these fabulous writers by purchasing their new books from Nightboat. We'll be dropping links so you can do that throughout the event. I also hope you peruse our titles, sign up for our email list, and consider becoming a Nightboat Book subscriber or following us on the socials. Thanks so much for your support. My colleagues Kaylin and Gia will be hosting the reading, so now I'll turn it over to Gia, who will make the first introduction.
Hi all, thank you so much for joining us. I'll be introducing our first reader, Andrea Abby Karam. Andrea Abby Karam is a trans Arab American punk poet, performer, cyborg who is the author of Extra Transmission and co-edited We Want It All, an anthology of radical trans poetics. Their book Villainy, which was published by Nightboat in September, was chosen by Simone White as the winner of the NOS Prize at Lafite. In order to live through the grief of the ghost ship fire and the Muslim ban, Villainy foments political action in public spaces and indexes the various emotional states such as rage, revelry, fear, grief, and desire to which queers must tend during protest. In scenes loaded with glitter, broken glass, and cum, Abby Karam insists that in order to shatter the rising influence of new fascism, we must embrace the collective work of anti-fascists, street medics, and queer exhibitionists, and that the safety that we risk is reckless and necessary. Disruptive and demanding, these punk poems embody direct action and invite the audience into the desire-filled slippage between public sex and demonstration. At heart, Villainy aims to destroy all levels of hierarchy to establish a participatory, temporary autonomous zone in which the targeted other can thrive. Please join me in welcoming Andrea Abby Karam.
Thank you so much, Gia, Kaylin, Stephen, Lena, and congrats to all the other Nightboat authors on your wonderful new books. I'm going to read from Villainy, and I'm going to read some of the fun gay poems. And I hope you enjoy it. The end of fascism looks like centuries of queers dancing on the grave of capitalism, the state, colonialism, Nazis, racism, oppression. It will be a grand party, even grander than Mardi Gras, and there will be no reason to sleep because there will be no need to work, and there will be such a revelatory pallor to the whole thing. The photos will be exquisite and the libations and snacks fucking delicious. There will be a giant dance party and Club Chai will DJ, and it will be at the Stud, and we'll all fucking dance until we sweat hard and makeup runs between faces, a transference, a transfusion of glam, a fusion of sweating bodies into a whatever singularity, a transfusion out of a fucking oppressed existence into a revelry, a full-blown revelry of queerness and desire that we've only now just barely begun to imagine, just barely begun to imagine, just barely begun to imagine. You fuck me with your entire hand in a room full of the dead. The dead are inside boxes behind glass. You fuck me so we can feel for 1 second that our friends are not dead, that they are living inside of us. A security guard approaches and you stop. I pull you up from the floor by the lapels of your leather jacket, face covered in cum. I exhale and absorb our dead friends into my body like you opened up a gateway for their arrival. I absorb them into my body and hope that they will stay, that they are happy and dry and warm. I give up the possibility of sleep for myself in an effort to make an environment for my dead friends, a social space, a closed world. A slow song comes on. It's called the leaving song. The crowd pushes forward, but there is no longer a forward to break into. The crowd tries anyway until my feet are no longer on the floor and your feet are no longer on the floor. And I press my hand against your cock while I'm pressed against so many other people, and so many other people are pressed against you. Some of them are the same, and some of them are just more. And our feet are off the ground. You are moaning. Some of the mass is concerned that you're going to pass out, that the possibility of a singularity unbecoming a singularity is beyond the present, is too soon. Our feet are off the ground. The crowd pushes forward. Your cum covers my hand. The others pressed against me cover the back of my neck in sweat. You begin to fall, and I pull you up so you don't fall beneath the feet of the expanded self. I want a better apocalypse. This one sucks. So why don't you just fuck me out of reality? SF Pride #2, after Orlando. I write, queers bash back on the garage floor in thick, hot pink chalk. It fades beneath everyone's heavy, jumping feet before the end of our set. We were supposed to say something. I think I said something into the mic other than the way you fucked me felt so good. Something about demanding space. My mom calls, tells me not to go to Pride, that it's too dangerous. A terrorist, white nationalist might show up. I tell her I'm going to Trans March and Dyke March, but corporate Pride sucks. This year, a lot more cops show up to Pride, even Dyke March and Trans March. One of them pushes my friend. My other friend flips him off. I want to just be in the street. Come on, let us have this one afternoon where we feel massive and that the city is ours and no longer tech hell, and no one will ride electric skateboards. And for just a few hours, we approach a queerness in public. SF Pride #4. Fucking Courtney Love on a dumpster. My fist wrapped in cum and her cum dripping into the trash beneath. Was there ever a better hybrid? Her urging while people wait in line for the club. What do we define as public trash transfers from private to public, export ubiquitous problem and aesthetic bliss, coming up new and inhale doll skin, fucking further into Hollywood fantasy, elbow deep in Courtney. SF Pride #5. After Dyke March, I went to the hot tub orgy. A few days later, I got evicted. Daddy Sandman. We all melted into hot water, like just before the boiling point. All hot water and skin and glasses of champagne, echoes of what we took from Whole Foods at the march so many times before. This is a different kind of march. We don't steal anything, just space on the street temporarily that's not even ours to take, really. We take it back from the city temporarily, overflow and widen the vastness of us, uncontainable by infrastructure or cops. We cascade through blocks and hills and 5-point intersection, heads thrown back in pleasure temporarily at the sight of our endlessness, wrapping up the foggy city wide with desire. Maybe it's candy or maraschino cherry from the ground or a factory transported through the veins of global capitalism to bob in each of our glasses filled with champagne we used to steal when Whole Foods was still just a proud grocery store before it became Amazon's foot soldier. Maybe it's candy or maraschino stolen and carried through TSA. Too much liquid cum oozes from my filaments, too many plastic surgery overwritten anatomy. Still, we made it to the party. Knew where it was without maps or cell service, drawn towards chain to magnet. We know our ends are limited. Daddy Sandman clicks through summer, so steady. Traces of pathways intersect outer layers of collision, new circuits carved in skin, a freshly drawn geography, situationist sketch, thick scabs, more permanent than what Daddy Sandman leaves us with, traces of desire's aftermath, sternal mold, a complete taxonomy of each peak and every jagged edge. Adorn your hands, all tearing at each other. We get a little closer, remove the millimeters of distance skin affords. We exceed the limits of Daddy Sandman's precise rhythms, forego sleep and eating, There is no time for maintenance when this will all be over so soon. Quick visit to our fantasy hard drive, suspend certain needs, merge onto freeway overdrive, nerve sparking, network visible from within, bright links in the night. We exist at the edges of this magnetism for quite some time, stretches out occasional step toward temporary network field, abandoned building, freeway aneurysm where our fantasies are held, and finally, rupture. It manifests first as a lot of texting and a lot of partying, a lot of incisions on the surface, split it open to the layer beneath where our connections to each other become more visible. Turn on the black light, turn off the overhead, cables threaded underfoot, foot bones and feet adjusting to the interruptions. Turn off the scene lights, turn on the stage lights. Sharing is different than what people take from you. Sharing is different than what the takes from you. Ligaments tighten and calcify against the brace of impact and splinter away from the concrete center. Be noise, clog, Big Daddy mainframe. Be noise, short out the Sandman, widen the clicks between moments. Skywriting that says, we want more than one weekend a year where a mass shooting might occur. Project on the side of the stadium, the way you fuck is boring, but you still don't get to watch. Right and wet concrete kick cops out of pride, or better yet, we make a world without them. Draw in the sand on Fire Island, RIP, Kevin Killian, spray paint fucking everywhere. Queer liberation means a world without prisons. Dig into the surface of my sternum, hold my hand through the flashbangs, and I'll hold yours through the flogging. Leather with metal studded edges, purple bruises, gritted notes glow in a mathematical array of desire and resistance. I buckle my bulletproof studded vest and melt in to the mass. Thank you.
That was fantastic and fierce as always, Andrea. Thank you so much. So it's now my pleasure to introduce our next two readers who will be reading together in both French and English, Olivia Tapiero and Kit Schluter. Olivia Tapiero is a writer and translator living in Montreal, and she is the author of Phototaxis, which was translated from the French into English by Kit Schluter, a poet, translator, and bookmaker based in Mexico City. Phototaxis is an innovative work of fiction that's formally adventurous, speculative, theatrical, and strikingly poetic. In this book, a city mysteriously overflows with meat, a museum is bombed, a classical piano player hooked on snuff films throws himself off a building, a charismatic but misled political organizer has disappeared, and a young immigrant navigates her place on a crumbling continent. Phototaxis rejects narrative clarity in its investigation of political communities, fascism, and the dystopian present, and yet remains a work of hope. Please join me in welcoming Olivia and Kit.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here. I am so honored and moved to be surrounded, albeit virtually, by such brilliant people, brilliant voices. Oh, nice. So Kit and I will be reading, alternating between the French version and the English one. And I'll be reading from the French one. But since this English cover is so much more beautiful, I'll just wrap it like that. So here we go. Promenade. Mener, miner, c'est raté d'avance. Encore encastré. Faudrait-il aller plus vite ou ralentir? Ici, on évite, l'air de rien, les raclures d'abattoir. Un homme s'approche de moi. Il me montre sur son téléphone une photo de sa fille vêtue d'un corset rose et d'une jupe couleur lavande, qui pose devant un rideau de perles, la main sur la hanche. Il me demande si j'ai faim, me dit sans attendre ma réponse de patienter et revient avec un sac en plastique bleu dans lequel se trouve une quinzaine de moineaux morts dont les yeux ont été ôtés. Je reste un instant absorbée par ces orbites creuses qui me fixent, par la douceur devinée de ces corps que je n'ose pas caresser.
A walk, stroll, sap, a failure before it's begun, still embedded. Should I speed up or slow down? Here, acting as if everything were normal, we avoid the scum from the slaughterhouse. A man comes up to me and shows me a picture on his phone of his daughter in a pink corset and a lavender-colored skirt, posing in front of a curtain of pearls with her hand on her hip. He asks me if I'm hungry, tells me, without waiting for my answer, to stay still, and comes back holding a blue plastic bag with something like 15 dead sparrows inside it with their eyes gouged out. For a second, I'm absorbed by these empty eye sockets staring back at me, by the gentleness I sense in these bodies I wouldn't dare caress.
J'avance et me voilà dans la chaleur lourde des rues de mon enfance, face aux têtes de chèvres pendues sur des crochets, ces chairs écorchées où s'amassaient les guêpes. Par là, là-bas, pour inspirer la confiance des acheteurs, on affichait la ressemblance entre l'animal et sa carcasse. On vendait cette continuité, signe du travail honnête de l'éleveur puis du boucher. Après la guerre, que certains nommaient l'intervention, ce genre de pratique est devenu illégal. Dois-je, pour m'arracher aux ascendances qui m'écrasent, désigner un lieu, une appartenance? Ou est-ce jouer le jeu du vainqueur de me rapatrier ainsi? Faut-il que je cherche une mémoire à refaire, que je porte à mon tour ce qui se réclame de moi? Je suis fatiguée de ces stratégies vassales, de ces noms de villes, de ces usurpations. Ne pourrais-je pas simplement arriver de nulle part, librement exsangue? Il me semble n'être qu'un corps qu'on cherche à ficher. Même les chiens s'entre-reniflent, même les chiens aboient quand on croise leur territoire. Les espèces se regroupent pour survivre et l'acceptation n'est jamais gratuite. Je ne veux pas payer le prix. Je ne revendique rien, me méfie des solidarités, des spécificités à partir desquelles il serait possible de délimiter un enjeu déchiffrable. Il n'y en tient donc qu'à moi si je me fais sans cesse couper la parole.
I keep walking and find myself in the swelter of my childhood streets, confronted by goat heads stuck on hooks, filleted meat covered in wasps. Back there, to build up the customer's confidence, they never concealed the resemblance between the animal and its carcass. In fact, they sold this continuity to indicate the honest work of the livestock farmers and the butchers. After the war, which some called the intervention, this kind of activity was declared illegal. Should I, in order to free myself from the lineages that crush me, choose a place, some affiliation? Or would such repatriation mean playing into the conqueror's game? Do I have to seek out a certain memory to reform? Is it my turn to carry what claims to belong to me? I'm tired of these strategies in thrall, these city names, these upheavals. Could I not simply arrive from nowhere, free and bloodless? It strikes me they only want a body to put on file. Even dogs sniff each other out. Even dogs howl when something passes through their territory. Yeah, that's Zochi, my dog. Species stick together to survive, and acceptance never comes without a cost. I don't want to pay the price. I claim nothing as my own. I'm suspicious of solidarities, specificities from which it would be possible to extract decodable stakes. So it's my own fault if I'm always letting them speak over me.
Les parois de plus en plus étanches se resserrent, la planète rétrécit, on crie victoire. Tout ceci n'est qu'un transfert de poids. Les volontés migrantes s'effondrent sur les suivants, héritiers croulant sous le poids qui les engendre, ratages tissés tout au fond des corps. Nous sommes les otages, les capitulés. Je n'ai pas peur de ma famille, je ne lui dois rien sauf la colère d'avoir misé sur moi. Prise en charge, intégration, un sacrifice, disait-il, pour me pousser à cueillir les fruits, à me réaliser malgré toutes les dents enfoncées dans la mamelle pourrissante de ce monde traversé, 1000 fois vidé, un énorme stationnement, un parc à oléoduc, du poulet frit au bord de l'autoroute.
The increasingly airtight walls close in again. The planet shrinks. They declare victory. All this is nothing more than a transfer of weight. Migrant desires fall down over the next generations, heirs sagging under the weight that begat them, failures woven deep within their bodies. We are the hostages, the ones who surrendered. I'm not afraid of my family. I don't owe them a thing except this anger over their having gambled on me. Cost? Integration. A sacrifice, they said, to push me to pick the fruit, to make me real despite all the teeth sunken into the rotting breast of this crisscrossed world, 1,000 times evacuated, an enormous parking lot, a park of old oil pipelines, roadside fried chicken.
J'ai brûlé la mémoire, brûlé tous les livres, le corps dénoué, comme un arbre revient à la mer. Tout s'est mélangé, les façades, les tourniquets, les embouteillages, les hospices, les fièvres, tandis que les cadavres s'empilaient dans le verdict des nuits. Crime. Mon visage s'arrache, ne sais plus de quelle guerre il provient. Peu importe peut-être. Longue distance, un bateau, les lumières s'éloignent, des femmes aident les fuyants à enjamber les barbelés. On m'y a poussé, les 2 mains dans le dos. J'ai trébuché, j'ai oublié. Les histoires se mêlent, les religions, cédées. Mon corps ne m'appartient pas. Ma peau fonce, me rappelle à quelque chose d'inconnu. Peut-on oublier ce qu'on n'a jamais su? Papier sans papier, photo officielle, nom, date, sexe, case obligatoire, dossier incomplet. J'ai longtemps envié la disparition d'une petite fille qui, à la colonie, avait été emportée par la marée. Depuis l'incident, je rêve à sa perspective, la rive et les cris qui s'éloignent, l'eau salée dans les narines, le soleil entre les cils, l'effort puis le relâchement de l'abandon, les fonds marins où je me vois coulante dans l'obscur, comme l'homme qui tombe dans le mystère.
This is the last section, so I want to take an opportunity to thank Nightboat and everyone who worked on this book. It's so fun working with you. It's like the best team in the world. And Olivia for trusting me to translate this book and for working with me on the translation. We've been working on it for a long time, and COVID hit, and the apocalyptic nature of the book took on this whole new meaning throughout the process of working on it. It was kind of incredible and uncanny, but this is the last little bit. I burned memory, burned every book with my body undone as a tree returns to the sea. Everything blended together, the facades, the turnstiles, the traffic jams, the nursing homes, the fevers, while the corpses heap on the verdict of the night. Crime. My face peels off, unsure what war it comes from. Maybe that doesn't matter. Long distance, a boat, lights pulling away, some women helping those in flight through the barbed wire fences. They pushed me across, their 2 hands against my back. I tripped, I forgot. Histories, religions mixed together, yielded. My body doesn't belong to me. My skin darkens, reminds me of something unknown. Can you forget something you never knew? Documented, undocumented, official photo, name, date, sex, compulsory fields left blank, incomplete file. For a long time, I've been jealous of the disappearance of a little girl who got swept out to sea back in the colony. Since it all happened, I've often dreamt from her perspective, the shore and the shouting, moving away from her, the salt water in her nostrils, the sun between her eyelashes, the straining, and then the relaxation into abandon, the marine depths where I see myself drifting into the darkness as the falling man falls into the unknown.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you so much, Olivia and Kit. It is now my pleasure to introduce Oscar Oswald. Oscar Oswald is the author of Irredenta, published this past October by Nightboat. He has a PhD in English and creative writing from the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, where he was a Black Mountain Fellow, and has served as an assistant editor for Noemi Press and as the poetry editor for Witness. Please join me in welcoming Oscar Oswald.
Hello, everybody. I just want to second what everyone else has said, that it's pretty incredible to to be on this call with so many great people. And those are two incredible readings. I'm so excited to go check out those books. Thank you for sharing that. I'm here to read from Irredenta. That's my book that I'm hucking today. It's kind of a pastoral thing dealing with the wilderness, the desert, the West. I was living in Las Vegas when Trump announced his run, and that, obviously brought up a lot of questions about occupation, imperialism of the West particularly. So here we go. This is one of the first poems called Young Herdsman. Rosemary, my atlas, each thread inaudible. What choice to flip the page available and see behind the mountain how it's done. First open space, make inroads, makeshift towns, that coins the land. Arrest construction off the highway, whereby East Coast is affluent beyond its means, whose forest roads I measure clear. I cut back every mile, takes the saddle summer grass, and Saddle Mountain absent trees, a distance of 1 year since harvest, nothing that my source cannot make do without, within my love's domain. My place, the furthest possible, dry paper, gasoline, dry depths of pavement, present tense or bristlecone. And in more time each summer, once the heat is broken by the pine, spare parts becoming common, and to include them, commonplace. Direct me leave abroad what is not here, rainwater, and in range the more available, the further my circumference is wrong-footed. Puddles, untethered leaves, who then I am, that ends the scene to drift from my apartment. I speak no civil hex. I carry bear grass in my pocket, aspen in my earshot, to what furthest I can stray. No statesman, I tune up my pipe with grease and gasoline. Being without center, who goes elsewhere is the same. Freshwater thunderstorm, outstanding rain. As I touch timber, touch my hand. Will this interior be spoken? Free thought with all the sky's direction, mine uprose, untitled the entire prospect of interrogations lost on me, American. Enveloper by nature, whether nature be big sky, uncitizens, steep man amends, or is entire. I moves empty, light or birthright, mine whatever drone in settlement, I blow my reed. Employer of the chalk line, onlooker, concluder. Please tell me, keynote speaker, which megaphone who greets me as my lover, blind to anyone I speak, avoid finale, strikes my limbs, nothing in pain, corroding ever after, foreigner, who isn't here to wonder what steep man am I who suits your power? I mind the apple seed, I mute myself, the redwood speaking stands inside my uniform, disrobe from me, state motto, speaking prose that ends listening. What's happening is the approval. The decoy is that woman, crush, aluminum, which man first said my question, may I unfold consensus of my body? So a lot of these poems are floating through sort of a pastoral universe. I was reading Theocritus, Milton. And so, I was trying to bring those to the West, and this one in particular is where I'm from, New Mexico. It's Gallup, New Mexico. Called Gallup, New Mexico, I-25. Piedmont, caked with rain, the clod and pebble, reddest bluff in town, real town, Theroux, his angel lips and journal world. Which exit is Theocritus? Which is it now? The rubber oak or great democracy, the Ocotillo or peyote sound, continue here. That is the resident democracy who bends the spoon and blows a creek to dry. I weigh myself as citizen or spirit. I am the substance of both. A river's floating light, I float to bottom. Newborn leaf, pale red and weightless branch, my neighbor's hand, the candle lighting. If I tumble down one song from resurrection, a man walks up his steps to mine, or eats the dung, his honest song. And nipping at my heels, a country boy in creosote, include the world, withstand it, how? If I have only water, finishing with every leaf is laid upon the dusty ground, rescue nothing. I have written of a song. This next one's a love poem. For all the lovers out there, lovers rock. The young herdsman. Bird I love, but one who floats to thee, prefers to be the jade where there is none with quiet time. How often am I there by green? I pay the officer one look, I go inside. I speak to her I love, that is my habit. Love opens the acorn of my earshot state. These notes I carry in my arms. Now please, for love, who is already short of breath? More people hear. Love whisper through the air. What have I to do with their interrogations? Chain me down that I no wonder would undo. My light is love, a silent window, and the riverbed that is my skin. Love is the country. Tell me, the foreigner who speaks, what is this made for me, my love? What love captains of cedar? What man is an alliance? I have my person wrap me. Love is sage and tar, rips apart my hand. I am an empty glass, love rings. Am I in uniform? I roll my sleeves, of course, love melts me head to toe. To hold myself straight, and that crumbles the authority. What liberty, please, with the keynote speaker swooping, for I hear, who sings to me, this land is yours. What love have I will be my currency and lives uncredited, anonymous. Oncoming love, do I slip into uniform or censor, speaking love in custody? My loving name outpours to people her within her harbor. And she, twice elected from the pond, love's laters, overlay the blue forever, which is unbelievable, repay her. Thank you.
Wow, Oscar, that was incredible. Thank you so much. So now it's my pleasure to introduce Paulo Javier. Paulo Javier is the former Queen's Poet Laureate and is the author of OBB, aka The Original Brown Boy. Featuring illustrations by Ernest Concepcion and Alexander Tarampi, OBB is comprised of a series of comic book collaborations with text and image, as well as poems and essays that expand upon the nature of comics themselves. OBB has many layered and intersecting identities: post-colonial, manifesto, conceptual, collaborative, avant-garde, political cartoon, and more. Utilizing this variety of innovative forms, Paulo Javier deconstructs a post-9/11 Filipinx and immigrant identity amid the lasting fog of the Philippine-American War. Please join me in welcoming Paulo.
Buhay, thank you, Kaylan. Thank you, everybody. What an honor to read with all the new authors. I wanted to just first start by saying, a year ago, this book's release was something that I really clung to and hoped for. And that it came out to be such a beautiful book is really life affirming and affirming to me of the power of poetry and also collaboration with Nightboat. I want to give a big shout out to Rissa, Stephen for believing in this book, unquestioningly Lindsay for working closely with me, and Kaylin and the Nightboat team for being so kind and loving towards it and certainly towards me. I'm gonna read from a couple of sections. One of the challenges of reading from a book like OBB is, how do I read from a book like this? So here's one version of it. So the section I'm going to read from is the opening section called Aren't You a Mess? I was born on August 20, 1977, to parents whose names join easily, like the words apple, tree. In Quezon City, where apple trees don't grow, and after a year, or was it 3, of time spent paying rent for an apartment in the city, which was hardly the norm then, and likely won't ever be, we packed up a young family's belongings and followed Rose's older sister's lead, buy a house close to the church. I grew up in Las Piñas, 17 Galvez Street, Phil Am Life Village. The first Pinoy you ever fall for lives in Phil Am Life Village in QC. Maybe it was necessary. Back in the Philippines, at an age you really could comprehend or distinguish that you had come of age. Quote, I want to be dominated. End quote. The most beautiful boy. Just like your typical Filipino man, isn't he a mess? Quote, you're nothing but a Tagalog teacher. I remember the terrible moment leaving. Manila is only outwardly you. Quote, monkey boy, monkey, monkey. I worried. I was happy. Not so worried. I think born in America, Phil Am falling in love with typical Filipino all over again. Isn't he a mess? I could spend hours showing you the inside of my shoes. We are so used to the sufferings of Christ closing down the airports. I began to picture ERAP declaring a state of martial law. You stuck there a week longer. I prepared my goodbyes. I began to let my mind wander. Quote, you keep making these connections. I find I'm making all these connections now, end quote. So I'll end with a few sonnets from a section called Remain as Beast. And there's anthropomorphism that happens in this book. And partially this is a chapter that's an homage to cinema, particularly Jean Cocteau. 1. Dearest will, to what from you private like suddenly it thing perform in where heaven light to neon, but end of me light I'll always need. Year in Manhattan, the remainder, and that I failed gloriously, die on the A, listen to crying someone after mind. Calamari tita, for look as in a vis, XMB, continue in, I'd Javier, reeling around the mountain, solid state as you make it come. 40th and city, secret to me, the dearest, your gestures single. Walk to this, escape and weak when you smile. Don Pedro from his shirt has washed the fleas. Kick me to the curb, if into and gives only Neruda, Javier, Queen, steel rain, range, simmering erasers, roaring I, then excellent lover, and Amsterdam, once raging seas, let me do so. Sardines and oranges. Your sunshine wish, then tears. 8:30 incoming train, send OBB or any, still confide in you almost every day, then stare, tummy, small without many circle, Rene, to Ted, Jose, these till firemen come with hose pipe tidal wave. Just keep on best of me, but adjust alone, disarming, finally sun-gathered flowers, savor of hunger, class, Virginia Savage, kill orange poem, someday mention pre-Hispanic words, brew hope, though later please, pain, keep someone all unexpected, it's I, OBB, animal, yours, need quietest heart like morning dew. Avenue someday. For burning bushes, fish never forgave. Why did you have to run? I just keep on coming back incessantly, sin, sleeping, the unexpected quantities, light along people, lines to a little dance with Leaf Factory. Navel is preordained antelope roaming, reeling around Calvin. Merit sandwich time word here and heaven. The stuffed or wasted rain check wind of script. Oh, for I mind much dream, so I'm a while. We talk, I know, burn, find, wouldn't baby away feel this? Brown boy to begin with, my African being, toilet papered heart. Incoming train, send your OBB. And this day, anyone by alive, just go, give, angel, and in my keep, guess, anchor. Gone, love, still you waited. When you want stories, shimmering, peacenik, Pepsodent, now chase the blue, white restaurant avenue to ever have someday. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Paolo. I will now be introducing our final reader of the night, Joey Yeris Algazin. Joey Yeris Algazin is a founding member of the publishing collective Troll Thread and is the author of Utopia, the multi-volume The Lazarus Project, and most recently, A Feeling Called Heaven out with Nightboat Books. Adopting the role of a death doula or New Age religious leader, and drawing inspiration from the theater of the absurd, author Yeris Algazin prompts readers to accept the already occurring end time. A Feeling Called Heaven oscillates between grief and humor as it imagines the non-human world that will grow from the ruins of this one, cultivating a sense of presence and intimacy with the inevitable destruction of our global environment. Please welcome Joey Yeris Algazin.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Kaylin, Stephen, everyone at Nightboat, all the readers and everyone who came, everyone who didn't come, just thanks. So I'm reading from A Feeling Called Heaven, which is made up of a very long poem and then a coda, the long poem called For the Second to Last Time, which I'm just going to read the introduction of. And so Deleuze says that the alcoholic is always preparing the second to last drink and never the last, which is death, but the second to last, which allows them to sort of walk up to that limit while firmly staying on this side. So for the second to last time, I wanted to show you something that would give you pleasure before the end of the world. I thought I'd play you a video of antelope or deer moving as a herd across an expanse of green grass, shot from the door of a helicopter, flying in unison with the animals below, as the repurposed foundation for the death of this planet in X number of years. For there's nothing to be done now but love and embrace the silence of our impending destruction as a species, offered the gift of consciousness through accident or divine fiat, and has done little with it, but slightly lessened the suffering of a few, i.e., the bar was so low and desire so brutal. There's nothing to be done now but to await our own destruction in the presence of each other. This patience, then, is really all that's necessary. Not saying how the world could be better. It can't be better. A better world isn't possible, but patience is possible. Meditation on a few moments of intense deprivation, on all that's left, this impoverishment we've been given, ecstatic reduction or a feeling called heaven that speaks to itself of nothing but a final annihilation that arrives quietly, though it remains perhaps forever in the distance. I wanted to show you something that would remind you of a time in your life before we came together, as a way of finding some trace of pleasure or happiness in the presence of each other. This is not a rejection of the world, but a radical acceptance of our own impoverishment that allows us to welcome passivity as a way of reducing both the mind and body to the minimal frequency necessary to maintain this place we now occupy together as we wait for the true end of the world, which is already here and yet has only just begun. An end that began without us, but because of us, and now no longer needs us, as it makes its way slowly through each and every one of us and each and every successive generation. I want you to allow this feeling called heaven, which is little more than a recognition of our presence here together, an acknowledgement that we're not outside the world and yet nothing's demanded of us, to create a modicum of calm and stability, sitting here in the company of each other, because the world is dying, at least for us. We've made it an inhospitable place for us, and yet there's pleasure to be found in the beginning of the end of the world. As you sit listening to my voice, I want you to remember that this is only the beginning of the end. And so we're embarking on this journey together, or more accurately, we're engaged in a process of reduction that erases any distinction between you and anyone else, so that you become just one body among many, a material object severed from its utility, merely occupying this space for a time. And in this way, we come to regard this wretched little thing we call our body, this vessel or vehicle, as little more than a seat of pain and frustration, yet one we hold so dear as it shrinks in terror at night, as the room in which you're lying down or sitting up, listening to the sound of my voice, settles around you with a noise disconnected from any discernible source, which for that brief moment makes you all too aware of your own fragility. Or at other times, as it swells with anxiety, something you feel welling within you, say on the train, when the arm of a stranger sitting next to you relaxes against your side, gently pressing into your ribs. As you resist the urge to turn your face and look at this person sitting next to you, to acknowledge this physical closeness and inadvertent touch that wants nothing from you, but needs a place to rest. A place at the beginning of the end that we cannot see, but rest assured for this moment together in the calmness of its late arrival. And in this way, you can think of my words, what I have to say to you, as constructing something like a side altar or a place for us to watch for those who will eventually come and replace us, only to keep this watch in our place. For we're little more than surrogates who've come to regard this vessel or vehicle, this wretched thing we call our body, as something like a coat or sweater placed gently on the chair beside you in a darkened movie theater, holding this place beside you for a friend who's on their way to meet you, but has been delayed, and whose absence gives you a reason to keep sitting where you are. And as such, we come to occupy the space between what came before and an end that has already arrived. Visualized in this way, we can understand this beginning as it occurs in the distance, far from us, as something like a boundary, or more accurately, a wall to gently lean against. As we sit together here in each other's company, I ask that you focus not on the individual thoughts as they pass through your mind, but on the structure of your mind, as the channel that these thoughts travel through, as the unconscious communicates with the conscious mind, giving meaning to all your interactions with the world, your belief and habits, your feelings and emotions. Each individual sensation is simply a message traveling through the very material by which you've come to understand, say, the trauma you underwent in being expelled from your mother's body, of gradually assuming this separate and isolated character, this faint noise in the background of your mind. And as you close your eyes and listen to the sound of my voice, as my voice and your own thoughts become one and move together from the foreground to the background, fading into the dull hum of atmospheric static, not unlike the hum of the air conditioner that keeps the room you're sitting in at a comfortable 70 degrees. Allow your attention to wander away from my voice and listen to these ambient sounds that vie for your attention daily, these parallel tracks coming together in the mind to create the hushed sound of traffic in the street below your window, or your upstairs neighbor moving a chair against the hardwood floor of their living room. And as you listen to these layers of sound, I want you to remember that this hum is just the sound of our collective death, which we patiently embrace, even if unconsciously, accepting this knowledge that emerges as the foundation of our lives together, that not only will we perish individually, but our time as a species is drawing to a close. And while this knowledge remains unthinkable, there are moments here together where we can envision the quiet that would exist without us. The clouds break and the sun glints off pools of irradiated water outside a freeway on-ramp or hospital parking lot, in which a few discarded syringes and fragments of plastic tubing bob in the light breeze, traveling across a world emptied of our presence. All right, thank you.
Wow. Thank you, Joey. That was beautiful. I just want to say a big thank you again to all of our incredible readers tonight. Andrea Abi-Karam, Olivia Tapiro, Kit Schluter, Oscar Oswald, Paulo Javier, and Joey Uris Algazin. You can find each book on our website, nightboat.org, and in the chat. Thank you again to the entire Nightboat team, and thank you everyone who tuned in.